working remotely, you still need to be in the office 3 days a week. And then all the people like him who have like these.
Anybody on Zoom?
Looks like somebody is. I can't read it. Somebody else. Is that Zoom, Rachel? Yes. I know him.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It's Brian's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's Gary.
Okay, 5:30, guys, you ready to go? All right, this is the March 10th meeting of the River Springs Parks and Recreation Board, and let's call the meeting to order. Rachel, could you do roll call, please?
Richard Swarthout,
Here.
Julia Melky,
Here.
Sophia Summer.
Here.
Scott Reese,
Here.
Dan Mulder.
Here.
Amy Fox. Here. Aaron McLean. Here. Jenny Richter.
Here.
Great.
We need
Okay,
these on and what are both are cool.
I think we're supposed to for the recording, is that right?
Works better for Zoom.
Okay, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Any comments, questions, changes? Anybody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see, board communications this month, Rachel.
None.
Do we briefly want to mention the garden club?
The Garden Club, Harbor Springs. It's their 50th anniversary in 2026, correct? Not 2025, 2026, yeah, in 2026. And their goal is to install a new garden to celebrate their 50th anniversary. The location they're looking at is Lower Zorn Park, the green space, around the flagpole that's there. There was historically, I can't give you years, there used to be a smaller, much smaller garden around the flagpole at one point. So they're gonna bring a proposal with different options, for the Parks Board. You all can discuss, make a recommendation, council not make a recommendation to council, for them to move forward. They'd like to break ground this year, just so it's established and ready for their anniversary.
Have they decided on how big it's gonna be?
They're gonna bring options,
Right now, it's 24 feet across,
Yeah.
24 by 20.
but they're open to making it smaller. They're open to putting it in other locations at Lower Zorn where it's not in the middle. So we're gonna ride this wave. It'll all be okay. The garden.
Yeah, and we're gonna,
Oh,
having learned from our last experience at Soren, we're gonna try and head off some issues and, but maybe take cones and mark out where it might be. And they've offered to do like a town hall coffee here, to talk to people about it and
And
the nature might
they
be.
also understand history of the park. They understand, they don't wanna put anything in that the community doesn't support either. So it's actually gonna work out really well for us as we look to the future of the park, of how this community sees green space. We tried a playground, that didn't fit into the picture, okay, now let's see what a garden, do they just want grass? So ultimately, it's going to help us too. So I think we've learned tools from the playground, we move forward and we see where it lands. And if we end up putting it somewhere else, okay, too.
So that will likely be on the April agenda. Anything else, Rachel? Public comments, Dawson.
Hey, Dawson.
Hey, I just wanted to come in and introduce myself, but I think I know almost everyone, maybe not Sophia.
Do you need your address, sorry?
Okay, so I'm Dawson Moore. I live in West Traverse Township at 7759 Marion. I don't know, maybe a month or so ago, I gave Rachel a call to ask if I could use the warming hut to teach some craft carving based classes, and it was like good timing apparently, and we're kind of been talking about ways we can collaborate a little bit, but so far it's just been like a weekly Tuesday evenings, just a handful of people from the community just getting together and doing some mostly wood carving based crafts that might change a little bit, have some more offerings and that kind of thing. And it's all free and open to anyone at this point. And
Everybody's had a great time, I think, right?
I think so, yeah, we've had some repeats. some good repeats and stuff already, and yeah, it's just, I had been teaching the past few years, mostly traveling around and already had all the tools and experience and stuff. I got my own insurance and all that kind of thing, and I made a little section on my website that has a Google form for people to sign up, so I'm doing all the signups and all that stuff too, so. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks too for making that available. It's a really cool.
Well, thank you. I just think this is such a good model for offerings that we could do where we bring the community in and it doesn't put a huge burden on parks.
Yeah,
Do you mind if I mention the birdhouses?
no,
Sorry.
no, it's fine.
Dawson is open to teaching our birdhouse workshop, so that'll be a parks program, and heavy partnership with him. For supplies and things like that, and him and I are gonna sit down and kind of hash out how it'll look. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we were thinking early June.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah,
like-
something like that,
Yeah,
right.
early June. So that's a really nice connection to have as well. So,
Have you been getting a good turnout for the classes?
Yeah, I think the first night, I think we had 7 or 8, and we had about a dozen the second week. And it was lighter last week. I think I've got 5 or 6 signed up for tomorrow, I guess. We'll see, I need to, I've been kind of overwhelmed just getting all my ducks in a row. I can now start advertising it more widely with the site and I've got classes posted, like classes and events posted through the end of April now. So I can start getting that out there at this point.
Great.
Can you put his website in minutes? The name of his website.
oh, yeah. Beautiful website.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there's a
we were
little
just looking at it.
explainer.
Do like a special post, you know.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, I
like
just
that.
got back today. He sent me like a really nice outline of his classes and, you know, like how to register, so that's gonna be a post for it.
I'm gonna be working on some like physical flyers and stuff like that too. Eventually, it's gotta step by step, but. Yeah, is that any other questions, or I think I'll leave you guys to it unless you have any other quick questions.
Awesome. Thanks for doing it.
Just
Cool.
the facility, anything else that you think would be helpful to have at Kiwanis as we're looking with architect?
I'm thinking about certain stuff, yeah, like right now, it'd be really small stuff, like a whiteboard would be super cool to have, for instance. The picnic tables have been interesting, I'm not used to that, but it's working so far, but, yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna keep thinking about it a little bit, but I think it's pretty nice just to keep it minimal and not too specific or anything. So far, it's just been real easy to bring stuff and take it all away, feature stuff.
And your classes are on what day of the week?
So far, I've just been doing Tuesday evenings. I think I have a Thursday option, like one week next month to get I'm trying to offer a beginner carving course that can like be people's first class to kind of get them introduced. So I might run that on a separate day, for instance, but we'll see. There might be longer, bigger, like maybe a weekend morning, but I wouldn't want to take away from people's birthday parties and stuff like that. So we can kind of just figure that out in the future, I guess. I know it's real popular.
We had a schedule so that, because the game tables with the checkerboards and chessboards, they're gonna be repainted sometime either in late March or early April. Sue West will come into it.
You
She's
sub
gonna
those
do it
out,
right in
those will be
Kiwanis.
outside when she paints them, most likely, and then we put 2 new tables in. So we
Unless
should
she
do
wanted
it
to
well.
do.
Yeah.
now
She wants to
she's
do
got
it
time
inside.
to do it.
She's not here right now. not until the end of March.
Do more of those tables live outside when the weather gets nicer?
Yeah, so those two tables that are painted for checkerboard, those come out.
Okay,
In the summer, we usually replace them with two that don't have.
So same number of tables,
Yeah, it's
so.
really
oh,
the
it's the same number,
if someone wants us, we don't like get them out before rentals. Really neither here nor there.
okay,
But,
alright.
Justin, is there a recommended age group for this?
Right now, I'm saying 16 and up. I think maybe a 15-year-old. No, I think he was 16. Yeah, we had a 16-year-old, that seemed fine. I might have, I'm trying to think of some different stuff that might be better for younger kids as well. Yeah, I'm already.
Wrong, pretty
Sharp
sure.
objects involved.
The knife based. I'm thinking of like, I do some like weaving and different things like that could maybe be funner, a fun option for kids, so.
This is great. We appreciate it so much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'll leave you guys to
on Zoom,
Darren, hi Darren, would you like to say anything? This is
Oh,
public
just a
comment.
quick question and related
Sure.
to Dawson, if you guys can hear me.
Yeah,
Fantastic. How fortunate we are that Dawson does these classes. Is it that it's only on Dawson's website and maybe the Parks and Rec? Because I don't remember seeing this anywhere and I just want to make sure I'm in tune because that would be a phenomenal thing to be a part of. Thanks.
Yeah, so we've posted it on social media, I believe once or twice, but not super in depth. But we will add it to the city website specifically, social media, especially now that there's a link to the website for people to register.
I just got the website up like in the past week or so. I didn't have anything when it started.
So you'll be seeing more of it.
All right, cool.
Thanks,
All right,
Dawson.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Dawson. That's phenomenal.
All right.
all right, shall we move on to new business and the recap for sledding and s'mores? Another successful
Let's do
year.
it.
Other North, wow, we had snow. That was nice.
Yes.
I'm gonna minimize this for now, okay. So why is it not working out? So I kept kind of a journal this year, so the weather, so January 11th, we got snow like Friday night. I was in a straight panic. We got about 3 inches Friday night. I was mild weather the day of, high 20s. On January 25th, we had over 12 inches of snow with 15+ mile-per-hour winds kicking in, of course, like right at 4 p.m. Making temps feel much colder, around low 20s, teens. We did notice the building was a lot busier that event. But other than that, we also noticed that when you have that much snow, the fire department equipment, when it's towing that much stuff, doesn't want to make it up the hill. So, but that's on a later slide. February 15th, over 8 inches of snow, a little wind, temps in the 30s. And March 1st, it was mid-20s. We didn't have too much snow, it was very icy. It was a quick going down the hill. But everyone's still seeing it. We did take helmets up there from the skate park just in case, for parents. But everyone seemed to enjoy it.
I want to tell you how much I love this event.
I know,
Yeah,
it's so fun.
You know, it's so much fun for the kids and you see smiling faces and happy families and, I got a lot of compliments, a ton of compliments on it. I even got compliments on my hot dogs.
So I had a couple people like pull me aside and they specifically said they plan their winter around these events. Like they look forward to it all year, wait for the dates to come out and come to every single one. I think we've done enough years now, we recognize a lot of the families that we volunteer enough. So that's nice. January 11th, we had around 125 to 150. January 25th, 100 to about 125. That was a really cool one. February 15th, 150 plus, and March 1st, probably 150 plus. And that parking lot was full.
But Rachel, are those numbers, the number of kids?
Oh, that's total,
Total.
yeah. And that's based off how many hot dogs we went through, chips, I mean, obviously it's our best guess.
Yeah,
Maybe-
because a lot of people aren't even going to get
Yeah, but we take pictures of the parking lot. Some people don't even come inside the building. Like, you have to keep that. And I mean, Jordan, my partner, he's outside doing stuff and he's like, the kids like, don't leave.
it.
And then it's last call for hot dogs and like freaking out, running towards the building.
Yeah.
So whatever we see in the building is never the big picture.
Yeah.
Cause the top of the hill is always super busy. And this year, even the fire departments are like, they almost need 2 pieces
That's
of
what I was
equipment.
gonna bring up.
There was like a line.
Mhm.
I have that on slide too.
Do they have 2 pieces of equipment?
No. But
Incentive to buy another.
Yeah, I did have a question. Maybe you're gonna talk about now, like how much we brought in the donation.
yeah, so the sponsorship was $100 per event, so for $400. Donations as of the 15th was 151, and then I think we made another 72. So expenses from Gordon's $873.89. It comes out to, with the new donations from March 1st, we spent about $210 in the entire event.
That's so cheap.
So we figure 4 events, we probably made around 800 people happy. Like that's
You can't
very
do it much
impressive.
cheaper.
We also budgeted $2,000 for the event. So
Should we ask for a greater sponsorship amount next year?
yeah, that's on the later slide.
When you consider expenses, I don't know how much it costs for advertising, but I just wonder if that should be included. With adding a lot of events, I think that quickly our advertising budget could
Advertising.
increase, like if you put it in the Harbor Light, I don't know what you're paying for.
Do
The
they
ads
charge
they
you?
usually just do
Flyers.
for, yeah, like free.
Like a
Okay.
community
Yeah, we
event?
don't, yeah. So, and then we just did Facebook in the schools and that's pretty much the only places, yeah, we haven't spent anything on it, we almost don't need to. Yeah, the only cost, I mean, we had some upfront costs, like the popcorn machine, things like that, that we use at other events, so that's not on here. The Gordon's. We ran out of some things at the end that we wanted to do, we don't want to be stuck with that stuff, and have it expire. Yeah, should be pretty happy with that. I think.
Well, I want to warn you, I haven't talked to Bill about this, but we're gonna make the hot dogs even better.
Yeah,
Little coney dog.
and we would like to request that we get Gordon's hot dogs instead of IGA.
Well, the IGA ones were left over from Ice Fest, so. So what did we learn? The sponsorship amount could possibly increase. We had a great winter, so that can change based on the winter, but if we're gonna do things in here or at Kiwanis instead, the sponsor would probably stay the same. I mean, it's open to the board. I feel comfortable moving it only up to like 150. I think is perfectly acceptable for the event. It's a service to the community. We shouldn't be making a profit off it. We should be breaking even, and we were pretty close to breaking even this year. So
So 150 total or per
150
event.
per event.
per event?
Well, the toy store kicked in 2 big ads in the Harbor Light and for sledding and before the events, which was nice. So, but that helps, like. Adds to the sponsorship.
And then did we highlight our sponsor enough? For what they gave us and what we did, do we feel that it's proportionate?
That's the Spencer.
Yeah. We don't wanna, well, and I ask that because we don't ever wanna increase the sponsorship amount without asking that question. Did we do due diligence as what the sponsorship amount was? Did they get something in return that helped them? And if we're gonna increase that, does that still align? Do we do something extra? But I guess Danny would know best. I mean, I'll email Sarah at the end with all this information and send her this. So she knows, and maybe Sarah will have, ideas of how we can make our sponsorship. I just wanna make sure we're not increasing the amount without talking to the sponsor and seeing if they felt they got enough in return.
I also think in general, that's just an area to think about for the next events that we have is how do we help to market ourselves as a an organization, and how do we advertise for what's coming up next? like something as simple as those little table stands
Yeah.
that you slide your paper in the plastic that says, thanks to the Rocking Horse for sponsoring this, that goes next to the hot dogs or next to hot cocoa.
Even
Or
like, yeah, a little
next
flyer
event.
with all the rest of our events for, you know, through September, or whatever we need to do.
Get one of those mini
Good
table
idea.
tents around the, and those aren't big costs, but I think that we could show more thanks to our sponsors and then what's
I like
our
the
next
idea.
event.
Idea too of a whiteboard up there where we could like, you know, have a big when you come in the door. If we wanna make some big events, that could work.
Yeah, or even a cork board or something, you know, yeah, whiteboard or anything that you can post on. And then for weather, although the snow amount was great this year, too much snow causes issues for the fire department equipment. So we're gonna have to do a couple things. For 8 inches or more.
I just turned my mic off.
I was like, is there an animal in the?
The mic, we're all on. We're either gonna have to have a snowmobile come the day before and create a path for them. That's actually, or I've spoken to Lucas and he thinks we could take like some sort of like drag something to make it like a path, but their equipment struggled. They got stuck once. I was like, oh gosh. But I mean, that's a good problem to have. I mean, ultimately. And then surveys, post-event surveys, where are people from? What did they like? What would they change? Something that and this is later in the presentation, but when I was at conference last week, people were talking about how awkward it is to get people to take a survey. Like nobody wants to be with their kids or doing something or eating a hot dog and we're like putting a half piece of paper in front of them. Like, it's so strange to me.
It could be fun to have like a whiteboard and have people tell us what you think.
That's what I was gonna say.
Or
So,
even like have a whiteboard and say, write your email address down here and we'll send
So
you a
what they-
survey.
so what they did is they took white poster boards or colored poster boards and put them on the wall. And then they left markers out and one board was, what did you love? And one board was, what would you change? And then it was more passive and people could come and just write their thoughts. 'Cause at the end of the day, I mean, I guess my question is, it doesn't matter where they came from.
Probably not.
I mean, are we gonna stop the events because they didn't come from the city of Harbor Springs?
I mean, looking around, I
Like-
went to, I think, 3 out of 4 of them, it looked like mostly Harbor students.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, if we're not gonna do anything with that information or change anything based on that, why are we even asking? So I think just a simple like poster where people can passively answer questions and then have an option, you know, leave your email or something for future events or whatever you'd like, maybe on a private sheet. But I thought that was a good idea for surveys.
QR code and survey.
Yeah, just something more. simple. Yeah. Did anyone else notice anything else? Like, what did we learn? What they'd like to change?
We need more space inside.
Yeah. I just wonder about, you know, the danger factor with the ice at that last one, like one little girl did hurt her wrist and we're not gonna get like, you know, waivers or anything like that, but
We have talked about posting signs that say, sled at your own risk anyway, and putting them in the winter. We probably should have those, no matter what, like 3. The other thing I wanna put on those signs is please don't create jumps and snowmen on the hill. I know.
isn't that the favorite bit?
Except then after like weeks, if we don't catch it, they turn into ice mounds.
Yep.
And then they're a danger. Like if Nate and I can't get them down in time, then they're kind of an issue. Snowmen
You
are
could
great,
put-
just put them by the playground.
You can put on the flyer too, like helmets from the skate park will be provided, bring a helmet if you want, like
Yeah.
just to cover your
We
bases.
brought like 8 of them and surprisingly, like, I think 2 kids took them. Parents just were like, they're gonna biff it. I was like, okay.
We did point out that there were a lot of rescue personnel there in case somebody was a couple.
I'm just gonna say music,
Yeah.
just makes it more
Oh, yeah.
lively, put up,
We did.
yes, inside.
We did.
We have some
Outside, yeah.
outside next to the fires, a lot of people were hanging out
Yeah.
outside.
Do we have speakers we could put outside?
I mean, I stole Jordan's word speaker, but I couldn't. Get
Put
it
in the
on.
budget, right, for next year, your ask,
Say
just,
Bluetooth
they're not very
speakers.
expensive.
Actually, it's in the budget for this year. I just haven't approved them yet. What have we learned? Continued building, fuse blows easily, and a surge protector does nothing. Sarah brought up a spot to hang up jackets, be beneficial. Volunteers, 2 to 3 volunteers needed at the bottom of the hill, 3 to 4 volunteers needed in the building, 1 to 2 volunteers needed to watch over solo stoves. Seemed fairly consistent through every event.
Rachel, do you think we should send a note to Gail Brown, thanking her personally for all of her help?
She came to like every event.
And she was at the bottom of the hill the whole time.
I didn't have the heart to ask her to come to the event after Ice Fest. But the last event, she went down to the bottom of the hill. I feel bad afterwards. I was like, we shouldn't have sent her down there.
Somebody,
but,
yeah, we should have spotted.
And
Do you
yeah,
want to send a note or do you want me to?
I'll send her.
Okay.
And then what else did we notice positive?
Yeah, well, that was great.
And
Thank
I
you
would,
for-
I would just say, we could, Cooks would be an easy enough thing for coats, but do we want to put too much into it if we're remodeling?
I think that's just part of the remodel, yeah.
Thank you to our sponsor. Here are some.
There's the hot dog master.
Yes. This is Dorothy, like not roasting her marshmallow at all. She just puts it next to the pit and then brings it inside. Yeah.
Great, lots of fun.
That's great.
Big presentation too.
Yeah.
Mhm. Do you want me to cover this, Rachel?
Go.
All right, we've seen a lot of this already, so some of it we can go through pretty quickly. Again, this is to try and get a master plan agreed upon and perhaps like conceptually approved by council so that when we start adding things at that park, we know what we're doing. And also DNR requires a master plan on file in order for us to apply for a grant. So yes, oh, we actually have a slide on that. Master plan for every park. So this particular project we think is going to do really well for a passport grant. So we'll have the plan done. Right now it's in the CIP for next year. So this would be the time to work on it, as well as winter being a great time to work on planning. And then we have, of course, in the spring, 8 trees coming from Shea Park that we want to be sure when we put them in, they're not going to interfere with what we want to do down the road. And we do have time right now. A lot of our stuff is on hold in different other stages of the project process. A little bit of the history. We still have not been able, I guess, to get a picture of the house, the Hoffman house there. I wonder if Lucas would have.
I spoke to Tom Hoffman. He's gonna speak to his family and come up with like a bundle of information for us, and pictures.
That'd be really fun. And I was telling Scott, I would love to do this for every park. I just think it's just interesting to know what the background is. And I might have been out of line, but I offered Scott the parks historian position. I don't think he's come back to me yet. Yep, so I think we looked at this last time. There's a big picture and this has everything we've got on the property: playground, the ball fields, park, pickleball, skateboard park. And there we are, and of course this has changed. The clump of stuff in the middle is out. A lot of the trees, what would that be? The east and north side are out. A few have gone back in at Arbor Day. Just a couple things to point out. We have the garden club, garden entry into town garden. This is the big pine tree that DPW puts lights in. And this is the big scraggly looking spruce tree at the top of the hill. So that's something that I think we should talk about, is whether it's time to take that out, because it's right smack in the middle of your view. And when you're in the park, you see 2 trees kind of stacked up. To me, it's awkward. And we have the retention pond here, here. I think at some point it would be great to reconfigure that parking lot, so it's more like a loop through. And we could add parking in that case too. Right here, you can see the old steps that go up into the park, which we assume used to be for, the Hoffman House there. And we've got a hedge on this side, 2 big sugar maples. There's a big boulder with a plaque on it, that says the name of the park. That flagpole here. Is that it? Anything else here?
I have a question.
Mhm.
I know that when we replaced those trees by Bay Bluffs, they were supposed to eventually come all the way down. Is that in the plan still?
Let's talk about that tree board next week.
Okay, I just didn't know if it
No,
was
it
still.
still is in the
okay.
plan, yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'd be nice to have that on that whole corridor there. Okay, Rachel. Just some pictures of the space on the south side, of course, is the view out to the water. And here we have the giant tree and the tree behind it.
I think that the tree on the other side of 119, the real tall one, has been taken down.
Really?
Yes,
This one?
no,
No.
to the right,
This one?
no, it's a
This
fir
one.
tree.
These are still there. These are still there. These are where the boulder are.
You're talking about the other side of Main Street though, not on the park.
Right.
Yeah, I'd have to look. I do remember Lucas kind of saying something. but
It's on the
I
other
was
side,
listening.
and I,
You can imagine if this big tree was out, you'd get much more of a panoramic view. I don't think it'd be a good idea to propose taking out the other evergreen with the tree lights. It's kind of nice. Yep. To the east, we have football courts. And then a whole bunch of these are out. There still is this big old box elder right here that's kind of half leaning over, and I'd be just as happy to get that out right now, get a nice tree in there. Then, let's see, we have, what direction is that? Did I not label that? Or no, there's something over. West. Yeah, on the west. So the west. Yep, so we've got the 2 big old trees here. One thing we're working on at Tree Board right now is the vegetation management plan. And so in the parks, we're identifying trees that need work. And both of these have a lot of dead wood in them, so it's good to clean them up, get them healthy. And the stairs go down about there. Then to the north, we have the retention pond and then the parks. And the views pretty self-explanatory. We were discussing that it might be nice to have more of a buffer between the pickleball and the park, and then also between the parking lot and the park. So these are some of the goals that we talked about so far for the park. So we have a lot of active recreation in the area. This gives a nice passive spot. Maximize use to the bay, connections to the community. A walkable loop that's accessible to residents, people with strollers, wheelchairs, walkers. Optimize parking, but that probably isn't going to be part of our scope, right, Rachel? At this time. Visual.
Yeah, I believe the school put in. I don't know that for a fact. I would have to ask Lucas, but I want to say that the parking lot was funded by the school.
We've already talked about, kind of separating the park from the chaos at the pickleball courts and then all the cars in the parking lot. There's not much shade right there now, so trees. We're saying it's a much underused park, so amenities that might encourage greater use of the park. Keeping it flexible, so we do want to ever put a tent or something there. And then we talked a little bit about, could the pickleball courts be reconfigured to get another, what is it, Rachel, 1 or 2 courts out of it?
Yeah.
So in looking at the plan coming up, we did give a buffer, I think it's a 15 feet to come out if needed. So in looking at what could some of the park elements be, I think this is part of our guidelines to try and keep it simple, right? So that ADA walking path. I think we've all talked about liking the idea of a picnic shelter, you know, for all of the sporting events up there, and it'd be great for family reunions and weddings and that type of thing. It's more expensive, but it's not that expensive of an item, and this might be a really good thing for us to look into sponsorship, like maybe Birchwood or one of the big groups in town wants to do it, or Montauk about that. Let's see, seating benches, tables, trees, and then we were thinking it'd be a good idea to put a lilac garden back in because this woman was so upset about the lilac that came up. Relatively low cost, flexible green space, all ages and abilities, and that really sets us up nicely for a DNR grant. Yep, and greater use of the park. Here's some other ideas. Super excited about some of these fitness course. This just to me doesn't seem like the place to do it. So do we want to just rule that out, or does anybody like that idea? I think there's better places. Shuffleboard we've been talking about wanting to do, but I'm not sure that this is the place either. Maybe something downtown would be better. Thoughts?
I'd say no.
Okay.
The only thing that I would say about shuffle, if people were potentially waiting for a pickleball court, it's not a bad alternate to sit there and play shuffleball or pickleball.
There are bathrooms there, which would be
There are
great.
Yeah,
Good point. And they could run the equipment. Yeah,
we have sort of the stuff kind of. that-
or even bocce like there.
Yeah, it could be bocce or something.
So we can identify an area, maybe that would be more of a phase 2 thing to look at.
How wide is the shuffleboard court? Like, I mean, it's a relatively small footprint,
It's
right?
bigger than you think it is.
It is.
A regulation
I
one.
hear you on that.
Yeah.
On it.
52 feet long and 6 feet wide.
6 feet.
There are variations, but that is the regulations.
Yes.
We could have a shuffleboard league, you know, I think it would be fun here. The one thing I'm really excited about, and this is part of a whole concept, is putting a telescope there. And you could look across at Petoskey. We want to make sure that it had like a stop in it, so you can look at the houses on the point probably.
Petoskey has one at their Bayfront Park. If you've ever used it, and that's controlled, so you can't just point it at your leisure.
But I think this would be an opportunity to really capitalize on the views and capitalize on education about Little Traverse Bay. Other amenities, parking would be definitely phase 2. Expanding pickleball, of course, would be phase 2. And then how do people feel about the stairs coming up from Hoyt? Would it really be anything people would use, do you think?
Love it. Like maybe on the 4th of July.
Is there even a sidewalk on that side of?
There's not a sidewalk on that side.
So should we kind of take that out of the?
The stairs that are there are unsafe.
No, they are. So
Yeah,
maybe
they're over
just, yeah.
They're just rotten wood.
There's cement.
And I mean, people are, if you're walking up to that park from downtown, you're gonna take the sidewalk and cross at the crosswalk.
I'm pretty sure the original stairs of the house was there. It wasn't like a park.
Yeah.
Project.
Yeah, if there isn't a sidewalk, I don't think it's probably. Should we take that out then?
Yes.
So one thing to add to your, or maybe to add to your signage about the bay is because we're right there by the stadium, like there is something to be talked about, you know, some tribal history there, some nice
Yeah.
indigenous people, like we can connect to the tribe and I think there's a good spot. Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm ahead of the game.
I think what's great about it is it does give more reasons to come to this park with the pavilion, with the telescope. A great place to have lunch, and I think that's a lot how it's used right now. Is guys stop there and eat their lunch there. Okay. Ball fields. So the main feature might be then this ADA walk. So it could start out like Shea, where we just kind of do the first part of it. phase one. We could do the rest later, or we just say, let's just do it. And this one, this is a 20 by 40 pavilion, which is pretty standard. That's the size of that one that we showed in the picture earlier. The dash line is the top of the slope. These are existing trees. I think it'd be great to add some more here and then also up by the parking lot. Possible lilac garden. And then we could talk about if we do decide to go shuffleboard, what might be a good spot for that. This is kind of an unused area over here. So this is 40 feet. What did we say?
50.
50
Okay.
by 6.
Yeah, so that moves over, maybe this is shuffleboard, just move over. So this would be kind of a lookout area. Then I've been having this idea about a little Traverse Bay Discovery Center, which could be here, and it could have like cool interpretive signage on different things that we'll get to in a minute. In the telescope here. Up on this one. So let's look at all of them first, maybe. This isn't a lot different. This moves the building over here. Maybe this gives more room for shuffleboard if we do want to have that. Maybe it's nicer to have this Discovery Center closer to the telescope. Next one. This one I don't like very much at all. This to me kind of orients everything towards the pickleball courts.
I don't like the pavilion that close to the road either.
No, yeah, good point. Yeah. And this orients the pavilion closer to where the views are, but you know, the views, I guess you look out both sides. Just for some reason, I think it's nicer, you know, up in here somewhere. Thoughts?
I'd say 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So one thing I think we should be careful about is that I've multiple times think about this park being underused, and it's not. It's actually this corner is underused, but the park in general, like is one of our most used parks during the summer with pickleball and the skate park and the baseball field. I mean, we get thousands of people into this park. So, you know, I mean, this one corner is sort of underutilized as a
Yeah,
piece of
so
it.
that's a better way to.
Yeah, but I, you know, people should know this park is like heavily used by people from all over the region. For all kinds of reasons.
That's why I worry about parking too, because it is utilized a lot. I see parking shrinking rather than expanding. Are we gonna be able to add parking spots?
We can, but that would be like a city call, I think. I think the city probably owns the parking lot, even if the school put it in. So that could be something we could bring up whenever we're ready to bring it to council. Thoughts on that, councilperson?
I think parking is always a consideration, but I think that you would have to look at the whole park to really determine where you can add parking, because I don't think adding parking just in this corner is going to fix the issue.
Yeah.
We have a tendency in town to sort of think about, like, we have parking problems downtown, like, you know, for like 1 month, and then we don't. And like up this part, if you planned your family get together at the pavilion during a little league baseball tournament, parking is gonna be a disaster. If you planned it on like a Friday afternoon where there wasn't baseball, you have so much parking, you could put so much family up there. So it's all a matter of, like, I don't know that we need there's a lot of parking. It could be reconfigured and maybe signed better to sort of say, hey, if you're going here, park here or whatever, but there's a lot of parking up there if, you know, if it's not game day.
Well,
It's
another
game day.
thing too, and I'm sure Lucas would have something to say about this is, you know, right now, the retention pond, I guess, is for water. I've never seen water in it.
I've never seen water there, never.
So, I mean, one option would be to fill that in and just have it drain. It would then go into the storm sewer system, which would really, it'd give you, you know, this is a lot of space, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
to keep going with,
I think also just communicating that there are other ways you can park here and walk through the
Yeah.
spillway up the hill, or you can.
Yeah.
Talked about that a lot with
Yeah.
the Little League, having a drop off section, like where it's dirt and those random 2 trees are planted in a dirt parking lot. But anywho, sorry. But having that be like a drop off loop. And then go park somewhere else. And then walk. Spillway are a couple options. Even the Reynolds Fields, school has been really cool about being able to use overflow to the Reynolds Field in the township.
And of course, the skateboarders park wherever the hell they want.
Do you have any complaints?
Okay, here's a question then, 1 versus 2. I wonder if 1 might be better because it keeps the pavilion farther from Hoyt.
Yeah, I think so, and like a little more accessible to like all the aspects of the park. Or if you have it in the
And
corner
other good
there.
thing too is if you're having a big barbecue, you don't have quite as far to walk.
You can,
But again, like you said, a drop off loop would be kind of good in this area.
you can definitely see, like, after a Little League game or a tournament or something. People using a pavilion to have your end of the year, whatever, and pizza parties or whatever it is.
Real estate,
Yeah, so closer to the ball field seems.
The idea of the pavilion came up, mostly because we have to be realistic that it's not going along waterfront, or probably downtown in general. We get a lot of requests for weddings, kind of how this got brought up. Everyone wants to be married in Harbor Springs and everyone wants to be married in July at Marina Park. And I gotta say no, for so many reasons. But I usually offer up Harbor View, because you still get the view of the bay, have some parking as long as it aligns with Little League, which we have those dates well beforehand. So that was kind of the concept of it, was it crossed off a bunch of boxes without having it downtown. And then same with Bay Bluffs, like we see, staff walking, and then they like take the wheelchairs and they're like going through the grass. It's like, well, it'd be nice to have a walking path loop to get to the view. The Little League would use the pavilion. I mean, I think the pavilion we used quite a bit once it's there.
Then Rachel, I'm curious as we're talking about the pavilion here,
Yeah.
what might be your perspective on how to move forward with rentals and reserving and all those different pieces, which will obviously take some time, but I'm curious if you could dig into, like, I'm thinking of the Petasica Pavilion.
So
You're only allowed into it unless you
Downstate,
rent it
yeah.
versus the
Yeah.
complete opposite.
we had 6 pavilions we rented out downstate. A lot of departments do it differently. It's not a perfect process, only because when people see a pavilion, they assume first come, first serve, and if no one's standing there saying, this is my pavilion, like for rentals, it's till 2, no one stops someone from 12 to 1 setting up shop.
Small signs saying,
Yeah, but usually people just put a plaque and then you have like a laminated piece of paper and you stick it up there with a clip. And it says what the rental name is and the time, so people know. And then it's kind of just characterized that way. And usually there's a bigger grill at that pavilion that's part of that rental. I've never had a problem. Really, it's pretty simple. We just say, if it's not reserved, it's first come, first serve, and usually only rent it out to 1 person a day. So, and that just alleviates staff having to clean it or do whatever for then the next rental. We do the same thing for Kiwanis. We try really hard to stay away from 2 rentals on the same day.
So we should just make sure we have those pieces in place
And-
before we move forward. with
Yeah, and then,
advertising.
some places don't rent their pavilions out at all. It's always first come, first serve. And then rule of thumb usually is that you charge. And then for non-residents, it's like $25, $20 higher. That's fairly typical. We would do the same thing for Kiwanis eventually if we would run it out. Kind of a perk for being a city resident. Yeah, there are a lot of ways you can do it.
so as for funding the park, if we could apply for a passport grant, and like, what's the timing on applying for that?
They're all in April. You
Pardon
apply, all DNR grants, you apply in April. Passport you hear in the fall, and you usually break ground
So
within
this
the
would
year.
be next year.
Yeah, it's quick. Yeah, passport grants are quicker than the
So this would be
engineering, you can apply for engineering for a passport grant.
Can you scroll back up, Rachel, to the picture of, pavilion? So that's, that one, so this would be another thing, when we get to that point, is what size is right, you know, what do we want?
Is that the size that you've been putting in the drawings here? I think that's a great size.
20 by 40.
I don't know if I'd go any bigger in that space.
What's the max on the passport grants?
I'll say 150.
150.
So it's about there, 25% match, I believe.
We had, I think Cups or somebody told us like maybe 70,000 max for the pavilion.
Yeah, pavilions, it depends. There's so many things you can do with pavilions now. They have simple ones, they have like crazy design ones where it's like brick or stone up, and then it's what, I mean, they have ones with, one we put in a few before I worked here, had like wood inlay, like that was really pretty.
We talked about maybe would there be a fireplace in it? I don't know.
Just a grill.
Okay, you want to scroll down and then amenity, the options, and then the next one. Oh, next steps. Oh, do you want to scroll down one more first? So possible lilac garden, and you know, we talked a little bit to the garden club, but they might participate, or there might be another master gardeners group or something that do that, but I think it'd be fun. And then we could even move the boulder up there, so we've got some history, and then we got this beautiful garden. And then one more, Rachel. This is possible, discover Little Traverse Bay, where you've got the telescope. And then I think this particular sign is especially nice, where you've got a sign and then you can flip this around and find out different information. And what would the tribe has seen at that time? How was the bay formed? Freighters and other boats. So you could have like a series of these or something like that. What wildlife might you see? And then I think it'd be really cool if we worked on this with River Springs schools. Cool, Maggie, or not cool?
Super cool.
Historical Society would be a good one too.
Yeah, no, I think it would be, good. I mean, even out in elementary schools too, yeah, be great.
Okay, should we go back to next steps then and we talk about that?
I do like this idea of just going back here, like sponsoring or purchasing a lilac as part of a fundraiser. It seems like a real easy entry point for a lot of people who can't donate a gajillion dollars or whatever. And we found that, I think, some ways on the boardwalk, that if you give people like a specific thing and kind of a little dollar amount, it just.
Needing the lilacs out.
I mean, that, but I mean, people want to be a part of something, and it's, you know, you could get a lilac for.
They're pretty
Well,
too.
that could be through the tree board too.
Right. So I think I like the idea of that sort of smaller scale,
Yeah.
like normal people can get involved.
Mhm.
So I think this would kind of go the way as it did at Shea Park, where first, you know, we looked at the options. If we're liking option one best, then we work a little bit more on that. Does that sound good?
What I would be doing.
Any other discussion about that?
Adopting one's best.
And then amenities, I think we gotta include the pavilion. Right? And the walking loop. And telescope.
I mean, if it fits in the budget, I think so.
Phase two.
I mean, if it doesn't fit in the budget, then yeah, phase two.
I think realistically, phase one is just the trees and possibly like the lilac garden, because that's what we're doing like this year. And then phase two would be
The walking loop.
the walking loop and pavilion. Like, I think we just need
Yeah.
to break it down
That's
realistically.
good.
And then phase three could be the telescope and the history part of it.
Some of that stuff you
We don't.
might want in phase two, because it may ultimately help you with the grant.
Yeah.
To have a partnership with the tribe and have a letter of recommendation and historical piece, if you can find, if it fit in the DNR budget, that would be a really great support letter to
Yeah.
have, a piece.
Yeah, I agree, but I think the instinct is exactly right, which is, let's try to break it into pieces. And one of those pieces should be, okay, this is the one we're gonna seek a grant money for, so we can get and put it all together. And, you know, if we get it all, great. If we get half of it, then we know what we're doing, whatever it is.
Well, then maybe phase 3 would be, do we want to look at other amenities like shuffleboard?
Yeah, I think that's a piece three.
Do we want to look at shuffleboard or?
I feel like there's a lot going on in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
area
that we
that I
don't
think that could be. a
I think that
factor.
having maybe like bocce ball or even,
Oh, that's good, yeah.
like things that can be moved. I know that they've,
The nice thing is there's staff up there too, so the bocce ball can be
Like
rented
a
out of the
croquet
building.
set that people can set up, like
Yeah.
stuff that is not a permanent part of.
I thought about even buying like a croquet, however you say it, set and having it up there for people to set up in Harbor View.
I
and play.
think-
Like, that's simple.
I think having games that people can check out and play is better than something permanent.
And do we all agree that we don't need a little playground or anything at this park, because we have one?
Oh, yeah, that would be too much. Never thought I'd say you don't need a playground.
Yeah. So phase 1 might be the trees and the lilacs. Phase 2 might then be the walking loop, the pavilion and the signage maybe, and the telescope.
And those would be considered your scope items, for the grant. So those are things you can't change. During the grant process, you give them your scope items. You can change little things, those things stay consistent throughout the process.
And I guess we wouldn't have to wait to add croquet or bocce. We could do that phase 1, or we could,
Yeah. Those are simple purchases people can check out for sure.
I mean, I think that it all depends too on if we get the grant, then phase 2 will be a huge package deal, whereas if we don't get a grant, then we might have
we'll
to
break it
break it
down.
down
Yes.
further.
all right, we did number 2, phasing, short-term plan to add trees. So I need to go up and just confirm one more time that I've got the trees in the right spot, but, would you agree it'd be nice to add more trees between the parking lot and the park?
As long as they're not gonna encroach on the
So, yeah,
pavilion space.
and then I would hesitate to put too many more trees, along the pickleball courts if
We have
that's.
other places and parks too, those
We
trees
do, I
can
know,
go,
but I'm
yeah.
just thinking for sun, you know, that it might be better for the lilacs if they had some sun. Okay, so when in this whole process should we do public input? Do you want to do a little park specific mini survey? Like specific just to this park?
Yes. So I would go as far. You're gonna do a DNR grant. So if we're gonna just do the trees and the lilacs, probably don't need a bunch. I would assume we don't need a lot of public input. We can all agree on that. When we get to the grant though, DNR is gonna want a checklist of all the things we did. To get ahead of that, I would do like an on-site visit for people to come, you know, from the neighborhood or the surrounding. Do the plan and maybe mark everything off so they see the size of the pavilion, they see the walking path and they have going over experience.
Can this be something that you have like some kind of poster board for like when you do the pickleball
Yeah, yeah,
open house so that maybe
Yeah.
people will have
That's a good
things to say
idea.
there that actually does that part?
and then, sorry.
Maybe, like a QR,
Or even like in the
stat
building
survey.
all summer, just have like a poster board that's like future.
So, yeah, so to
Of the
go off
park.
that, what I would guess, what I would want is similar to what we did with Shea Park, an overview and then laying out the different phases, so the general public knows. And then we get that out, we do it at the pickleball open house. We start phase 1 and then we do a Parks Corner article. With everything, and maybe that says like when we're gonna do the site visit up there, you know, later, like in the summer when it's nicer. Get that out of the way. The public hearing would have to be at council level. It'd go to planning commission. Have to for the grant. But that at least gets us kind of in tune, like no one should be surprised at that point. If we do a Parks Corner, we do it at the pickleball open house, we do a site visit. And then, because we have till April And we can lay this out in a timeline too for our next meeting, and then we can say, what, how does this make sense? And I'll pull the DNR, I don't know off the top of my head, it's different for passport and
What they
travel
want
ones.
to see.
Exactly what they wanna see in the specific month they want it. Cause they have to be within a certain day, a certain time period before you apply. So,
Jamie, do you think, council would want us to come once we get option one cleaned up? To just see what we're looking at? Or
Well,
do
I
you think they
agree.
want public input first, or?
I think it's good when you're doing a big project to bring it to council, because that's probably the most views that people
Yeah.
are gonna get.
I agree, only because remember when we took all those trees down along the pickleball courts? I wish we would have said something to council, we didn't know when that was happening, that wasn't even parks. But I wish we would have said something, cause I got some phone calls.
I think if you take it to council and just say, this is the concept, we're not asking for money.
Yeah.
This is the
This is a
timeline,
conceptual
we wanna know if
draft master plan.
council's gonna
Yeah.
support us applying for this grant.
Yeah, cause we'll need a resolution from council to even apply for the grant, I believe you do for the trust fund, passport's a little different.
So we'll take it one thing at a time. I probably
Yeah.
can
So,
get the drawing cleaned up. in
yeah,
the
so
next
drawing cleaned
month.
up will be your avenue, and then I'll work on the public outreach avenue and, the timeline for DNR, and also the public outreach form that we created that says what we're going to do.
And I might suggest we bring it to council in the summer, so we don't get accused of sneaking things by in the winter.
I don't wanna see.
Yeah, and I think being very clear about that we're gonna go for grant money for this is the reason we're doing
Yeah.
these master plan. But Anna, you said something I thought was right on. I hadn't heard it before, but we talk about why we do master plans. When you said, well, if we're going to have a lilac garden, we don't want to plant trees right behind it because it's gonna shade the lilacs and they need sun. Well, I had never really thought through that like very much before, but I think from people, that makes a lot of sense. Like, oh, so you might have, if we don't think about where the lilac garden's going, then we are gonna plant trees here and you're not gonna get the, they're not gonna thrive and you're not gonna have the garden you want. So that to me makes a ton of sense. As an explanation to folks is why do we do these master plans? So we don't run into
So
the
maybe
problems like
that's
that.
even a little pre-discussion when we bring this, is to go over with council why we do master plans.
I do have the outreach, sorry, the park died, someone is like
Oh, do you wanna
charging,
look at that? Yeah.
but not. So yeah, so we took that outreach form that we had worked on and then. We made it specifically to Harborview. Obviously, we're not gonna do a post-event survey, we're not gonna do flyers, but we will do boards, so we can sub that out. And then maybe the next meeting, we can go through this once we have the timeline, and we have, a more final site plan, and we can go through and just put in what we wanna do and when we wanna do it, and then I'll add in what DNR is gonna make us do. So then we have a full list, and then we can say this is what our year looks like, and then we're ready to go for April.
Rachel, if I could suggest, why don't we put in council preview, because I think as Jamie said, that's a great way to get the word to a lot of people.
I'll put planning commission and council, just in case. Everybody feel comfortable? Okay. First director's report. Okay, the historical society.
Wait a second,
Oh,
Erin,
okay.
did you have any comments on our agenda items tonight? If you didn't hear.
No, thank you for asking if you can hear me.
Yes, yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay,
The Historical Society gave an update to council on the locomotive on last Monday. I don't, so the May is when they're putting it in. There was some confusion. It seemed because they weren't gonna put the pavilion in right away, they also weren't gonna put in the concrete pad right away. But council made it very clear that that concrete pad needs to happen for us to do a walking path, pretty much, so they seemed on board and that'll be addressed. Everything else is a go. The engineering is being worked on by Beckett and Rader. When that is completed with estimates, we will take the engineering to, I believe, the planning commission. Victor's gonna double check, but I believe the planning commission and then the council. And then pending those meetings, we will put it out to bid.
I have something I'd like to add to. Rachel and I had a discussion today, about this whole thing of having the path to nowhere where it stops up at the AHA. We're not gonna put a loop into the,
Yeah, sorry, I just want to clarify for the board, because they may not have watched the council meeting. To clarify, so the stairs up to Main Street are gonna be an alternate
right,
on the bid. So, okay, sorry, continue.
yep, so if we don't do the stairs, then there has to be some way to end the walk, or we just chop it off, I don't know. But Rachel and I were just having this philosophical discussion about maybe phase one doesn't have the walking loop, maybe phase one just has like a sidewalk that the Historic Society, Virginia and stuff. Out to the sidewalk at Hoyt, and that's it. And that we say we want to hold off for the walking loop and the stairs.
You can see what the costs come in at. It'll be an alternate anyway.
So I'm gonna start thinking about that.
That's what I think about. The other thing that a council member had mentioned to me that they did the due diligence and they looked in the historical societies, like, their master plan, whatever they call it, and it talks about accessibility. Neither of their components in the park are accessible. So that could be a discussion with the historical society about maybe some of the funding is on them to connect to Judd. That short, piece when they do a cement pad, maybe to make their piece accessible, that's what they do.
Well, along those lines, though, the AHA's not accessible either, so maybe they should do that part.
In the perfect world, they wouldn't have gone in not being ADA accessible. I mean, planning wise.
I think council right now has taken a pretty firm stand in making sure that the Historical Society is doing exactly what they came to council and said. I don't know what will happen if they don't get it in May, like they keep saying it's going to. But I do think that council is watching this and going to be very firm.
But it will be placed on a concrete pad.
No,
Like it won't.
So it's going on tracks and then there's gonna be like rocks,
Aggregate base.
aggregate, yeah, so my fear was, if you're not doing the concrete pad. And we're mowing and we're like, that's not going to work, like a concrete pad of some sort has to go around it, whether they're putting the pavilion in or not. And that was, like Jamie said, that was pretty firm at council, so that.
she was very,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're gonna do, we'll figure it out, and I was very firm and said, you came to council and said this is what you're gonna do, and we planned an entire park around it. So we really need you to do this, or else you need to come back to council and show us a different plan.
It'll be neat when it's there.
So May, hopefully, and I'll keep people updated on Beckett and Rader, we're going with that. I will work with Beckett and Rader on a design without stairs. I have no idea what that'll look like, but that's why I'm not an engineer or an architect, so.
I feel like part of the design is.
Yeah, I went to MParks conference, woo woo. Last week, it was awesome, I'm gonna give you a quick little update, because it was super exciting. I don't know if you guys know a lot of parks people, were super fun. So the hot topics, there's so many classes, so difficult to choose. But I went to navigating local politics. I'm going to navigating local politics, strategic planning for small departments, inclusive events, park facilities and programs, millages, and then a really great class on sponsorships. So navigating local politics, so basically, like, it was a DNR representative, the director of Northfield Parks, where was the other gentleman? I think Novi director, and it was just a panel. And they were basically like, what do you do when you get a totally different council or a completely different parks board? And you had all these plans and now your plans are like, oh my goodness, like, what are we gonna do? It was one of those. It was perfect. And a lot of it was to brag. Like, don't wait for your annual report when every other department is also doing an annual report and council has to sit through it. Utilize public comment. Every time you do an event, then go to public comment. Every time someone calls and says, wow, the Parks Department is doing great, go to public comment and let council know and utilize that space. It doesn't always have to be a 5-minute, 10-minute presentation annually. They're like, you just kind of get lost in everyone else's report.
I like that.
Another one was crawl, walk, run. The Northville Parks Director used to work for Independence Township, and he was like, I used to run and then be like, oh no, now we have to like go backwards and go slow. So he was like, always start slow and like work your way to a run. And I think we do that really well now that we phase projects and like learning from past projects. That's how
We
we
may
learn
never
too.
run actually.
Yeah.
We really like walking.
Yeah. And then I learned that NRPA, the National Parks and Recreation Association, I'm gonna do this in the next couple months. You can input like how many pickleball courts you have, how many residents you have. You can even do seasonal versus like full time, like what your staff is, and it'll tell you, like, it's like a metric system and it'll give you like a full report, like how much staff you should have, what the salary should be, like how many pickleball courts you should have, you know, like how big your beach should be. Like it'll give you all that information kind of as a guideline for your community, and it'll base it specifically off other communities that resemble you throughout the country. So it'll take all those that are registered and then compare us to see what other people are doing. So it's not a perfect system, but it's a really good system to kind of gauge where we're at. Use the board to advocate. Again. So that means not just the Parks Director going to council meetings and being like, we're great. Other individuals going and saying how great we are.
I had something just really quickly.
Yeah.
I was just having this idea, like, what if we assign board members to different council meetings? So different board members are there saying, we're so excited about this. One thing we have planned coming up, or we just finished this, we wanted to tell you about it.
Turning negatives into positives. There was a really big discussion how, like, no matter what project you do or what you're doing, there's going to be a negative spin to it. There's nothing we can do about it. It's some of it's just human nature, some of it's political culture, and just turning it into a positive. One of them was if a board member or a council member or someone from the public has no idea what they're talking about, and they're like, you should totally put like a massive basketball court in Marina Park, to say, I'll investigate that and like call it a day. Like, don't say no. Don't say like you're ridiculous and stupid like you want to say. Just be like, I would love to investigate that. Like, thank you, and walk away. Tour parks, have council members, board members like actually be in the park, because some council members may not know we have a lot of parks. They may not understand the nuances of each park. And how much do we bring in with sponsorships and fees? And this was a big one for me. Obviously, some of these were much bigger communities that had rec centers and a lot of programs going on and things of that nature. They brought up a really valid point, and it was, what else in the general fund brings in sponsorships or fees of any kind? I mean, obviously, we're not carrying ourselves. I think he said the average Parks Department, like big, that has like, right, it's like average is 26%. Is brought back in. I think Northville's at like 46. It's like unheard of. I don't know what they're doing there, but they basically said, saying that, like, yeah, we're not a for-profit business and we're not making what we're spending back, but we are one of the only departments within the general fund that does even try to do that. Small part,
Rachel, could
yeah.
you send this to all of us?
Yeah. Small department, big strategies. This was a director who works in a really small township, and he was working on a master plan. And he basically went through like analyzing current conditions and accessibility. Sometimes this means consulting with someone and coming in and looking at all your parking lots and looking at, you know, for instance, Harborview and saying, this is how many ADA parking spots you should have. This is how you can get more parking in here. This is how like your pathways need to work, anything like that. Then when you're looking at your master plan, what can we realistically do in 5 years? Not throwing like 10 massive projects out there just for fun and saying realistically, what do we want to do? What are we going to focus on? What do stakeholders want to see? Prioritizing needs and wants once we know what the stakeholders want to see, and then bringing that all together to the Parks Board. Plan for maintenance and long-term sustainability, buildings for fun. Basically, make sure you have a plan. And then 3 steps to your master plan that he harped on are the evaluation phase, saying, you know, what do we need to do and things like that. And then the envision phase, what do we want to do? And then the execution phase, how we're going to do it. So I also downloaded his master plan. I'm gonna read it front to back. I'm a freak. New programming ideas. I went to a couple. One was on like ensuring programs are inclusive on purpose. This didn't necessarily fit well with us for a couple of reasons. These were like bigger events. For instance, like if Emmett County had their fair and like you paid to get in, and it was like, let's say you had a family of 3, it was like $60 to get in. And you have one child that doesn't like loud noises and they're like really struggling. They have quiet booths where you can take a child into a tent and they have noise canceling headphones and they can like simmer down and come back and then go back to the event, enjoy it with their family. And then I already went over the poster boards for surveys, making that more passive, also inclusive. Not everyone wants that face-to-face fill out the survey. And then I took a class on Lansing Parks and Recs as a city scavenger hunt. I know we had talked about it. It was awesome. I'm so nuts. It was sweet. They do it the month of July for Parks and Rec month, but maybe we could fill it in on a month where not much is going on to bring people to local businesses. Millages. This is not what I thought it was going to be. It's about county millages. County millages are awesome though. Fun facts. Emmett County Director was there. I hope he gets one, because counties can get millages and then disperse a percentage to cities and townships within that county. They can also have a percent of their millage grant based. So like, for instance, if we wanted to do a small project, we could apply for a grant through the county for a percentage of their millage. Awesome stuff.
Doesn't Charlotte County have that?
I believe so, yeah. They talked about being too conservative the first time can bite you. Some parks departments decide to go for like 1 year, 1 project. I think that's really safe. But then you're doing that just like over and over, and it's just exhausting. So while it does work really well for some communities, sometimes it's best to go further. Q&A on what money can and cannot be spent on. The longer, sometimes the better for stability and planning. They're like, if it allows you, like go 10 years out. Like if you think you can do it, go for it. Know what your municipality limits you to. Operational versus project based. Progress annual report on how funds are being spent. Remind the public of the why annually and repeatedly. So when you go for your millage in like 6 years, people forget the millage even existed or what you did. Friends of the Parks group, and then social media can make or break. It leaves room for a lot of misinformation when people start commenting. They were like, it's wonderful, but they've some communities that have a lot of backlash from it. Sponsorships. It was a gentleman who worked for the Chicago District Parks. Some of these are really difficult. Like his first rule was don't compete with coworkers. For instance, Ice Fest. They go out for sponsorships. We have such a small pool. That's really difficult. We're obviously going to be asking some of the same businesses, but he was also like really interesting. He was like, you should be asking businesses you would never think of, like Montai or like Preston, like businesses that like, I think as parks, we always think like go to the outfitter or go like somewhere that's like recreational. And he was like, branch out. He was like, cause they'll absolutely like be honored you even ask them. Don't show specific amounts, don't leave money on the table, basically. Don't be afraid to say no and walk away. Like if you have a sponsor and things are going south or they're dictating where the funds need to be, or like the company doesn't vibe with your mission, they're just really difficult to work with in general. He's like, walk away. They'll respect you more in the end. Put everything in writing to protect yourself and your sponsor. And then anything over $1,000, like deserves a one-on-one meeting. That's not just like a, a phone call, asking for something.
So like, for example, asking for money for swimming in s'mores, we wouldn't give them an amount, we'd just say,
What's your budget? That's what
What's
he
your
said to
budget?
ask. He said to talk to him, and then he says, what's your budget? And he's like, and you see their number and see where it lands. He's like, if it's higher than you want, he's like, then your event's gonna be bigger. He's like, and then you judge it that way. He was like, and obviously he's bringing, I mean, Chicago Park District, like he's talking like $10,000 sponsors, I'm sure, or more. But he made some really good points. Then he talked about the difference between a donor and a sponsor. A donor is someone who gives you money, nothing in return, except for like, thank you to this donor. Sponsorship is a relationship. That's a very strong, that's not like you're donating money to something, like you're gonna expect something in return. So he's like, if you have $1,000 sponsor, you need to make sure the package aligns with that $1,000 and they're getting something out of that. Don't ask for, too much and then not give that amount in return. So he said some packages, could be like Parks Department has their own marketing people. They have different packages for each different sponsor, handwritten or, hand typed up. It's not the same for everybody. So. Any questions on that?
it's really good.
Yeah, it's
It was
good.
awesome. And then, we applied for $4,000 to the Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation for 2 bicycle pickup stations. Should hear back in April. We're waiting on design for Kiwanis. I'm gonna get a hold of Mark. And then pretty much went over Shea Park. And these are our programming dates. Pretty much all I got.
Can you include in your email update tomorrow if there's any of the events that you're looking for a sponsor so
Yeah.
that we could possibly also help
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
ask people to be sponsors instead of it all falling on you?
I just made a note to send you a list of businesses, cause my dad's business is in Franklin Park, and I'm like, Evening Star Joinery would sponsor tons of this stuff, and we wouldn't usually ask them, so.
Yeah, I thought that was a really
Yeah.
valid,
I'll try-
said it, and I was like, I can't believe I never that never dawned on me.
Yeah. You always think of like the downtown retail businesses.
He was like, it's basically like doing an event for animals, like a dog parade is what he
Mm-hmm.
used. He's like, and only asking pet stores, and a car dealership comes and they wanna give, and you're like, no, like, this is just for like pet, but like, you would never do that, like, so.
I think some of those businesses might be willing to give more than
100%.
like a smaller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too. Great.
Fundraising committee's meeting on Thursday, so that'll be good. Anything else anybody wants to talk about tonight? Great, meeting adjourned at 6:52.
Thank you.